Welcome, everybody. Please mute
Mm-hmm.
your audio if you are calling in. Thank you. I'm Lisa Tobias with Community Institute for Psychotherapy. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. Looks like we have a number of people continuing to join us. And I'd like to make a few introductions here. Welcome to CIP's Raising Healthy Families educational series. And we are so happy that you are able to join us. And this series is really to provide an opportunity to learn and think together about important things that affect our families and our children, and to learn some more about mental health and wellness issues, and to really raise awareness and decrease stigma around mental health. Community Institute for Psychotherapy, or CIP, is a nonprofit tax-exempt center founded in 1977.
It's the beginning, or
And we provide quality, affordable mental health services to Marin for individuals, families, children, couples. And this is so that we can help our community to establish mental and emotional well-being. And we offer both short and long-term outpatient psychotherapy on a sliding scale basis. And this provides these services to people that would probably be unable to have access to this type of therapy otherwise. And to that end, I would like to mention our sponsors for tonight who have generously made this possible. And starting with Mary Jane Burke with the Marin County Office of Education. And the Marin County Office of Education is co-sponsoring this seminar. In addition to the Office of Education, our other sponsors are businesses that really care in our community, and we hope that you'll patronize them if you have the opportunity, and I'm going to mention them here. It's Union Bank, First Federal Savings and Loan, Mechanics Bank, Delfino Green and Green, Bank of Marin, Luther Burbank, and WMB2. So thanks very much to our sponsors. Some of them might be joining us here tonight. And I would like to move on and introduce our presenter this evening. Her name is Sierra Dator. Sierra, wave. And you all have an option at the top right of your screen where you see view, or you can turn on the speaker view and see a larger view of Sierra as she presents. And tonight she's presenting Raising Wise Girls, Helping Develop Self-Esteem in the Age of Social Media. Certainly an important topic in this day and age. And I also want to let you all know that if you have questions, you can go ahead and type them into the chat. There's a chat button at the bottom of your screen, and if you click on it, you can enter your question. And Sierra may stop occasionally for questions, and we'll also have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. But I'll be monitoring chat, and so we, just enter it there, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go. Please do keep your mute button on just so we don't get audio feedback from everybody that's attending tonight. It's quite a big group. And be aware that this presentation is being recorded. So just FYI, and it's something that will likely be available from CIP's website in the future. Just to briefly introduce Sierra, she is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's a member of the National Association of Social Workers and the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. She earned a Master's of Science in Social Work from the State University of New York in Buffalo, and she has a private practice here in Petaluma. She's worked in a variety of settings, including schools, special education, hospitals, residential treatment centers, and private practice, and also not-for-profit organizations. Additionally, she speaks publicly to parents and teens about issues that they're facing, and that's what she's doing here with us tonight. She has a passion for helping people and a great ability to connect with tough kids and teach parents so they can use practical tools to help their children. So tonight we welcome Sierra, and we really look forward to learning more about how to support our girls in this difficult age of social media. Thanks so much, Sierra, and I hand it off to you.
Thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate it. A couple disclaimers before we start. As Lisa mentioned, I have a private practice. I also have a program called Wise Girl Workshops, where I support girls ages 3rd grade through 12th grade. I run a variety of workshops and programs. But in my private practice, I work a lot with anxiety. And so I just want to offer this disclaimer that I myself deal with public speaking anxiety. And the treatment for anxiety, and what I encourage of most all of my patients who are working with anxiety, is to challenge it. And so I sign up to public speak and put myself out there. So I'm just going to ask you to offer me a lot of compassion today, as my heart's pounding out of my chest and I feel like I just want to be in the audience and not speak. So offer me some compassion. Know that it will get better, hopefully, as we move along. And the second disclaimer is, I got this book, TED Talks. I don't know if everyone here is familiar with TED Talks. They offer wonderful presentations, wonderful speakers, innovative, so much to learn from. So I got this book, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be giving this sort of like bigger talk. I'll get this book and check it out and get some tips. So what happened was that this, as I was reading this at night, it just further and further increased my anxiety. It was like, hey, don't use bullet point presentations. And I was like, I use bullet points, and it was like, don't use slides. And I was like, I use slides. And then it was like, and you'll see it today, you might really appreciate it. But when you do a bullet point slide, it says, you might have the fade in feature, the fade out feature, the slide in. And I was like, and this book is telling me don't do that. And I was like, this is that's my jam. I slide in, I fade in. And so you are not just I just want to lower the bar here. You are not getting a TED Talk today. You are getting a Sierra working through her public speaking anxiety talk. So I just wanted to really set your expectations. But I hope we have a lot of fun today talking. Yeah.
Sierra, I just want to, there's an important question. Someone is asking if this presentation is appropriate for their daughter, for the 14-year-old daughter to join. Would it be okay to have kids join or not?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anything going on that wouldn't be inappropriate for someone to hear. I don't know how interesting it'll be for them, but they're certainly welcome to join.
Okay, great. So fine to have your kids join. Great.
All right, so now that I've lowered the bar, let's get into my introduction. So thank you seriously for coming today. I'm so grateful for you taking some of your precious time. I know that life is busy, it's dinner time, or if you're from the East Coast, I love you East Coast people. I know it's like bedtime because it's 9 o'clock over there, so thank you. And more importantly, thank you for taking some time to think about how to help your daughter grow. Growing up in the digital age is a vastly different landscape than when many of us were growing up. And I hope that many of you can probably agree to that it's a different time. So let me take you through my transformation of technology. I was the girl that was glued to my telephone as a teen and tween, but it had a cord linking me to the kitchen. And in my family's advancement, it was cordless with a range that only extended to some of my backyard. I grew up with my mother using a classic typewriter. I remember the sheer enjoyment of her allowing me to press those heavy set keys. In high school and college, I used the crowded computer labs, and my junior year landed my own word processor until eventually sporing my brother's ginormous personal computer when I went to grad school. I've certainly upgraded through the years, eventually having a MacBook Pro laptop and iPhone to keep me connected to my family and friends on the East Coast and to get my work done, although I am here in California. My home is filled with Kindles of differing years, iPads of various sizes, old cameras and video equipment used to document my 2 daughters' arrival and growth, and a plethora of cords tangled in a woven basket in my tiny home office. I know I'm aging myself, but who here is with me? This is how much things have changed in what feels like just a short amount of time. With all this change in technology and no sign of it slowing down, many parents feel overwhelmed. They don't know how to support their daughters in a land that feels so foreign. The land of social media is a whole frontier that keeps revolutionizing itself. While Facebook might be familiar grounds for many parents, the world of Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and YouTube are only the beginning of what's to come. Something newer, bigger, and better is always right around the corner. And for many products, our girls are the target. Today, I want to take you on a journey of teen girls and look a little closer at how social media affects their self-esteem. Because whether your teen admits it or not, social media has a big impact on her. And as we talk today, you'll see it's not all bad. The impact is both for the positive and, unfortunately for many girls, the negative. My work with girls comes honestly. I care very deeply about human development, which we're going to talk a lot about today, mental health and wellness, parenting and raising wise, confident, strong girls. And all that comes from my own path, my path of being a daughter and sister, a friend, an athlete, and then later in life, a social worker, a coach, mother, wife, therapist, and workshop facilitator. So let me take you back to a momentous time in my life. Although back then, I wouldn't have told you it was momentous. I would have told you, well, I would have told you it was fine and it didn't matter, but I know now just how much it did. When I was in 6th grade, I hit full-on puberty, and I became a part of this statistic. Between the ages of 8 and 14, girls' confidence levels fall by 30%. So I'm going to say that again. I want you to take that statistic in because it's big and it might really resonate with you. Between the ages of 8 and 14, girls' confidence levels fall by 30%. And this is according to Claire Shipman and Katie Kay, who researched and wrote a book called The Confidence Code for Girls. So I'm going to share with you a picture of me here. Right when my confidence is falling. I'm the one with the braces there. This is me. I'm in about 6th or 7th grade here, and my confidence, while I'm smiling there, and I'm with my girlfriend Margaret, who's a good friend of mine growing up, my confidence level, I know now in hindsight, has really fallen. So I'd like to share with you what I did to combat this decline in confidence, what that 6th grade girl did there. I tried to become someone other than who I was, and I watched what the other girls around me were doing. And not just any girls, the girls that I thought I wanted to be. I left my athletic but immature peer group and I headed for the popular table at lunch, where I was acceptably placed down at the end with the other mildly popular girls. And again, I watched those girls to see what to do next, and I found it. That winter, I joined the school ski bus where we would head to a small Pennsylvania mountain after school on Wednesdays. To be clear, I did not fit. I didn't know how to ski, and I wasn't rich. And from my vantage point, that seemed like the prerequisites to participate in popularity. But I wanted to do it so extremely badly that my family scraped up the money to make this happen for me. You see, I grew up in a working class, lower income family where we did not have excess. I was a dominating force in my family because with puberty and a new awareness of a social hierarchy came a vast amount of fighting and pushing from me. So my parents often relented to my force. For the record, I'm not proud of this behavior. Anyway, in my eyes, ski bus was the place to be. We had about an hour-long bus ride, both to and from, where the social ranks were ever more pervasive. Cool kids in the back, everyone else up front. Well, you know where I wanted to be. Now, ski bus obviously happened in the wintertime, right around that Christmas. And that Christmas, I had gotten something good, something of real value, a New Kids on the Block music tape. I was so ready to bring that tape on the bus and share it with my cool friends. On the first Wednesday of ski bus with that tape in my back pocket, ready to board for the long ride, one of the star athletes, super cute, popular boys in my class began to berate that band. I don't know exactly what he said, but I do remember how I felt. A total sense of urgency took over as I knew it would be a certain social death if I was found with that tape. With my heart pounding and sweat dripping underneath my layer of thermals, I secretly took it from my back pocket, quickly threw it in the trash, and never looked back. Not only that, I joined the banter about how horrible this band was. I tell you, with my confidence dropping, I said and did many things I'm not proud of, including throwing out a tape my parents used their hard-earned money on in an effort to be cool. So obviously, if I'm talking tapes, this predates the internet and social media. I can only imagine what I would have done and felt had social media been around. If I had a phone with instantaneous access and pictures, I know I would have told you it had a positive impact on me. I would have told you I like being able to talk to my friends, knowing what's going on, and being included. However, what I wouldn't have told you would be that in the quiet confines of my room, I would have been suffering. Seeing my differences and all the things I didn't have, realizing exclusive chats, stories, and get-togethers would be going on without me, and seeing my followers, likes, and snap score ebb and flow, I know I would have been dying inside. And I would have fought my parents to keep that access, no matter the mental toll it would have on me. So for the record, I'm not anti-social media, and I'm not anti-phone. I realize these devices are just a pit stop on the evolutionary way of connection. And as parents, we get overwhelmed and uncertain about what to do about it. Many parents are feeling overwhelmed. No, many parents are left feeling hopeless and backed into a corner because nearly everyone over age 13 has a smartphone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. The 2018 Pew Research Foundation study reports 95% of teens, 95% of teens have a smartphone. Is that surprising to you? Maybe, maybe not. So parents are not only dealing with the force of their daughter's maturational process, but also the pull towards technology and a society moving at Mach speed to stay connected and seen at all times. Today, I'm going to offer you a way to think about how social media is impacting girls. But first, we need to start with the basics. We need to understand typical teen social, emotional, intellectual, brain, and physical development. Then we'll take a look at the way social media fosters connection and also contributes to anxiety and depression. Then we'll take a look at what clinical depression and clinical anxiety look like. And from there, we'll look at how we can support our girls and help foster resiliency, because technology isn't going anywhere. And as we will discover, all social media isn't bad, but it can be. And as parents and providers, we need to know how and when to intervene. Okay, there's the intro. I'm feeling a little better. All right, here we go. I'm going to share those slides that TED Talk told me not to. I'm coming for them. Hold on for a second. Let me share here. Okay. Share screen, share screen. Okay, I'm doing this. No, not that. Okay. So raising wise girls, helping girls develop self-esteem in the age of social media. That's what we're talking today. Here is the agenda that I just shared with you. You can take a look at that. That's where we're headed, our destination. And let's talk about adolescence. If you've ever come to see me for a coaching or therapy session, you may find one of the places we start is with development. I can't tell you how many parents have come to see me and have brought their girls to my office. They're feeling scared, frustrated, confused about how their once flexible and family-oriented and cheerful girl has changed. She's moody, she's glued to her cell phone, she's spending increasingly more time in her room and only seems to care about her friends. And that can be concerning. But as you learned today, we want to look for changes that are pervasive and impacting relationships and functioning. So a parent's concern actually may be more about development. So I think that's a really good place for us to start. And if you're interested in, we're going to talk about adolescent development. If you are interested at all in learning about development before the stage of adolescence for those elementary school years, I have a couple talks on YouTube about growing confidence in girls, and I cover those areas. So feel free to look up Wise Girl workshops and be able to check those out. So for the purpose of us, we're talking adolescence. Yeah, TED Talk, here it is. They just slid in. Everybody like that? All right. So this is the stage of development following when puberty begins and children are transitioning from child to adult. Nationwide Children's Hospital says puberty in girls can begin as early as age 6 or 7, which is also known as precocious puberty, although much more often it starts around age 10. So we're going to talk about changes that include emotional, physical, intellectual, social, and brain development. And brain development, I'm going to hold off at the end as we talk about these 4 aspects of adolescence. So according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, there are 3 stages of adolescence. And there's some discrepancy about this. So American Academy of Pediatrics says the early stage is ages 11 to 14, although some researchers say that ages 10 to 13 is early. Middle stage adolescence is 15 to 17, although some say 14 to 17. And late is ages 18 to 21. So 18 to 21 is kind of interesting to think about in adolescence, because usually in our culture, we have this idea that when one is 18, they're an adult, right? They can buy cigarettes, they can vote, they can do other things, and they get lumped into adulthood. And I think it can be really helpful for us to remember that 18 to 21 is actually adolescence. So let's take a look at what happens during these stages. And I want you to consider what I share with you as a guide and not as a rule book. Some girls may bypass some of this stuff, some of these changes. They might go through it earlier or later, but this is a general guide about what happens emotionally, physically, intellectually, and socially during the phases of adolescence. So early adolescence, ages 11 to 14, 10 to 13. We've got body changes, right? This is like one of the tough stuff about starting adolescence. Developing breasts, hair growth, growing taller, acne. Oh my gosh, right? Like as you think about those can be really painful parts of adolescence. On top of, let's start our period, causing us to be uncomfortable and curious about these changes, right? So, you know, when it comes to girls growing taller, if you weren't this girl, you may have memory of girls who are really a lot taller than everyone. And that can be really hard on girls' self-esteem and development, to be taller, to have bigger feet, to be towering over people, as well as to be developing in our bodies, to be developing breasts. That can be really hard for girls going from the pre-adolescent body to a mature body. At this stage in adolescence, you'll find gender and sexual preference questioning about one's own gender, being curious about others, and also one's sexual preference. This stage also involves egocentricity, becoming egocentric, which means the world revolves around me. Which isn't to say that girls can't be compassionate. It just means that they are often by stage of development, just really thinking about themselves and that the world revolves around them. Girls at this stage are moving from being a concrete thinker, which usually ends about age 11, 12, to moving into abstract thinking. So concrete thinkers think about, that means it's what's right in front of them, literally. Abstract thinkers can think beyond what is right in front of them. So for example, those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. You tell that to a concrete thinker, they're like, yeah, don't throw stones at a glass house. To an abstract thinker, they can realize the meaning behind it, right? As people who have faults shouldn't criticize other people for having the same faults. This is an age and stage where you're going to find girls are pushing boundaries. One of the metaphors I like to use with parents is that we are the mixing bowl and our kids are the batter, and they are going to bump up against us, right, against the bowl, and we're going to offer them some containment. Sometimes it gets messy. Sometimes they start to splash out. But our job is to be the mixing bowl, to hold them, and to know that pushing boundaries doesn't mean that they're bad kids. It's a normal part of development. There's an increased need for privacy. When before you could walk into the bathroom when your daughter was in the shower or using the bathroom, no big deal. Now you may find that they're in their towel. They might want you to knock. They don't want you around when they're changing. There's a need for privacy. They might take their phone calls or their devices and want to go and hide out somewhere to get some privacy. There's desiring for some independence. Anybody else here a mall rat? That was me. I was always at the mall. That was so East Coast. I wanted independence, and it started, you know, with my mom dropping me off at the mall, and she would hang downtown and I'd have to check in with her. And then that eventually came to, like, I didn't really need to check in with her, but she was still there and I knew I could find her somewhere, to the point where she could leave and then come back. I hit two little buttons there. Okay, feel like they are being judged. That can be hard for us parents, because we can be like, nobody's really even thinking about you at all. But in their egocentric world, they are being judged and everyone is looking at them. They can also be moody and rude. They're impulsive. Oh, excuse me, they're immature despite being mature at times. This can be a really confusing thing for parents, because she can look mature, especially if her body has changed. She can look older. Maybe she's using some older words and some older humor. And then all of a sudden she's back to being a little girl, watching Disney shows and little cartoons and talking like a baby. And you can be like, what is going on? So there's this real vacillation between the two. This is the beginning of impulsivity and invincibility. And just over half of children in the United States, 53%, now own a smartphone by age 11. And as I shared earlier, when they're 13, we're at 95%, right? So to keep in mind that girls are going through all these changes, many of them with a cell phone in hand. I'd like to talk about cognitive distortions. Little side note here, that spans the ages of development. We can see this in the elementary years, definitely in adolescence, and us adults can be caught with these as well. But it's really like a hallmark of teenage time. You'll really hear this a lot. And I share these with you so that you can develop some patience around, like, oh, okay, I know what this is. Because it can be really frustrating when our teens are caught in a cognitive distortion. And so what this means is, this is a habitual way of thinking that are both untrue and typically negative. And teens are notorious for using them. And as I said, other people use them as well. So let me go through a couple with you. All or nothing thinking. Either it's all like I look great or I'm disgusting. Everyone loves me or everyone hates me, right? Catastrophizing, expecting a disaster, the worst case scenario. It was the worst day ever, right? And not to say that we can't have the worst day ever, but with teens, as we'll talk about too, we get a lot more emotion, right? And a lot more feeling. And less logic. And so you can see a lot of catastrophizing. Mental filter, which is only taking into account the negative pieces of information and discounting the positive. Somebody's telling a story and it's negative and you're like, yeah, but what about that? And they're like, no. And then they go on with the negative. Mind reading, which is reading someone else's mind and isn't good. Teens often know what other people are thinking. Let me do that again. Know what other people are thinking. Fortune telling, they're predicting the future and it isn't good. Overgeneralization, because it happened once, it will always happen. Personalization, everything others are doing or saying is tied to them in a negative way. And another cognitive distortion is emotional reasoning. meaning you base your conclusion on feeling versus any real evidence. So an example was like, I feel like she's mad at me, even though we just had a great time yesterday. We hung out all day. She told me she was a great friend, that we're really great friends. And then the next day I feel like she's mad at me. So these are just some of the forms of cognitive distortions. There are more, but these are many I see in my practice with girls. And again, it can be really frustrating for us parents. So depending on the moment in time, it might be a great idea to point this out to your girl or to educate her around what cognitive distortions are. And a lot of times that can be good when she's not caught in one, because as we know, when we're in a space where we're kind of spiraling, it can be hard to be educated in that moment. So we really want to pick and choose our timing. All right, let's move on to middle adolescence, ages 15 to 17 or 14 to 17. We've got regular periods, and growth has slowed or halted, right? I stopped growing in 6th grade. Yeah, I've been the same 5'2". I know you can't tell here, 5'2". And by the way, I am not in pajamas, pajama pants. I know on Zoom we can get away with that. I'm in full dress up for the presentation. Okay, that is where, never mind. Okay. Interest in sexual and romantic relationships. Again, this is a guide, not a rule book. And so you may have girls that are much interested in that earlier or not at all and interested later, or maybe never are. This is a time that teens may be exploring their sexual identity. Maybe they may be calling themselves, not even calling themselves, but identifying as pansexual, bisexual, heterosexual, homosexual, right? That there's a lot of ways to be in terms of one's sexual identity. And this is a time that teens are often really exploring this. Increasing desire for independence. And this can lead to more conflict in families because they might have a driver's license. They have friends that drive. So it might be like, well, why can't I go to Tahoe with my friends? And you might say, well, because you've never driven in the snow and you have a provisional license and I don't want you driving other people. It's against the law. And there might be a lot of pushing and fighting. I want to stay out late. I want to go to the party. We've got continued concern about appearance and being judged. We might see less time with family, resulting in more time with family and friends. Excuse me, more time in your room or with friends. They can think abstractly, but they still use a lot of emotion versus logic in their decision making. And so when it comes to cell phone use, this can be a tough stuff because you know, something happens on social media, you get fired up, right? You're upset about something and all of a sudden you're firing off a text or leaving a post or making a comment, and then you're on a fight with somebody on a social media post because you're working with emotion and that's overriding logic. As you know, they know everything at ages 15 to 17, and you know very little or nothing. Strong emotions can be seen at this age. They're impulsive, but they can foresee consequences a bit better than in early adolescence. They're trying on identities. That's why you might see lots of different ways of dressing, different hairstyles, different hair colors, doing your nails, not doing your nails. I'm earthy, I'm a hippie, I'm very aesthetic, I'm really whatever the identities are. You might see a lot of changing and it can be confusing to parents, but know that this is a part of the developmental stage. Feelings of invincibility lead to risk-taking. And this is part of why you know, we see accidents at this age, and part of why insurances really rise. They're new drivers. And not only are they new drivers, they also carry this invincibility. And so there's a lot of risk-taking that can become, that is a part of the stage. And there's some desire to fit in while others value individuality. So you can see kind of both ends, and you can also see the desire to fit in. And as we move into later adolescence, we look at more individuality. All right, moving on to late adolescence, ages 18 to 21. They're grown to full height and physical changes have arrested for girls. There's increased impulse control, can better evaluate risks and rewards. That's not to say that they're not going to do stupid things. I was in college from 18 to 21. I definitely didn't have great impulse control at times. Oh, I gotta get my slides in. Here we go. All right. They are focused on the future, right? So whether that's getting a job, going to college, taking a gap year, the future is here. And it's taken up a lot of their headspace and they're focused on it. They're more emotionally and physically distant from families, both literally and figuratively, meaning they might be at home, but sort of like attention with their friends, or they might be literally away from home, maybe living somewhere else, roommates, college. At this age, we're more grounded in our identity. Relationships are more stable. They know what they value. They have the ability to delay gratification. And that egocentrism, the world revolves around me, is fading a bit. It hasn't faded totally, but it starts to fade. So here are some developmental challenges for parents during this time. We're going to move from an attachment style of parenting to a detachment style of parenting. What I mean by that is we have our babies and we carry them and we hold them and maybe we wrap them in little swaddling things and we keep them super close, and then we're holding their hand and we're taking naps with them, and then they're going to kindergarten and we're there to pick them up if we can, and we're really all about staying attached. And then with adolescence comes this detachment. And the challenge for parents becomes when to hold on, when to let go, when to ignore, when to trust, when to restrict, when to allow their choices, when to let them fall. And as we know, making mistakes allows for growth. So we want them to fall sometimes. We worry more, and a challenge is to make room for who she is. That leads into talking a bit about brain development here. I'm going to show you a video from Daniel Siegel, who is an awesome author and psychologist, I believe. And let me work that out here for a second. All right, I'm going to stop my share there. Okay, we'll make it big. And this is about a 4.5-minute video.
The adolescent period is absolutely amazing. People often give it a negative approach, saying, oh, it's a time where adolescents are going to lose their mind, or they're just immature, or raging hormones drive them crazy. These are all not only wrong, but they're myths that mislead us and actually disempower us. Whether we're adults or adolescents, they actually give us the wrong message and they make it so there's nothing we can do. So what is actually the truth? The truth is that instead of raging hormones, what's happening is we have remodeling in the brain in ways we never could have predicted. We now understand two big things are happening in the brain. Things you as an adult can support adolescents in developing well. And if you're an adolescent, you actually can use this to help your brain grow in an optimal way. What are those two things? The brain is pruning itself. So imagine that in childhood, you're growing like a tree and establishing all these branches and all these leaves are growing. In the brain, that means connections among the basic cell, the neuron, called synapses, are being established, and you're soaking in the knowledge of the world, and that's beautiful. The tree is just growing, growing, growing. But then what happens that surprised everyone is the brain begins to prune itself. You start carving away some of those leaves, some of the smaller branches, even some of the larger branches. And the reason for the pruning is to specialize the brain. While the child is developing in ways that are really generalized, learning everything they can about everything they can, an adolescent is going to begin to find their passion, to actually find things they like, things they really love doing, and to drive their development in that way. So pruning is actually a use it or lose it principle underneath it. That if you don't use something, you're going to going to lose it. So if you like sports or like dancing or like music, do those things so you continue to establish those circuits. The second thing that happens in the remodeling adolescent brain is myelin formation. Myelin is a healthy sheath that allows connected neurons to communicate with each other in a much more effective way. How? It's 100 times faster, the signal that's sent down a neuron to communicate with another neuron, 100 times faster, and after it fires off, it's 30 times shorter the resting period that happens. 30 times 100 is 3,000. So when you've put down myelin, you've made your neurons communicate 3,000 times more effectively. That's a great thing. Now, the great thing too is that you as an adolescent can actually use the focus of your attention to be aware of your emotions, aware of other people, to be engaging in activities, to be doing things with your thoughts that actually reinforce the parts of your brain you want to hold on to. So the good news about the remodeling story is that a field called neuroplasticity, how the brain responds to experience, shows us that what you do with your mind can change the activity and therefore the structure of your brain. So if you then come up with the statement that the ultimate goal of brain remodeling is to make an integrated brain, to differentiate areas, that's the pruning, and myelinate them, that's the linkage. When you increase differentiation and linkage, you make the brain more integrated. And an integrated brain is the pathway toward well-being. And you can do mind sight exercises. These are exercises that increase insight, empathy, and integration. And if you do them as an adolescent, and you can also do them as an adult, you'll actually increase the integration of your brain as your brain is growing, not just during adolescence, but throughout the lifespan. And what's the outcome of integration? When integration is made visible, it's kindness and compassion. And so what we see through adolescent development is that our relationships become built on connections that are deep and filled with honoring each other's vulnerability, that's kindness, and supporting connections that are compassionate, filled with a sense of caring about other people and wanting to help them. This is the kind of world we can build as we move through life and support each other in our development.
Dan.
All right, I love that video. I don't know why I get so emotional with it, but I do. I like the idea of this beautiful world. All right, let me get back to my slides here. Oh, no, hold on for a second. I just closed out all my tabs. Okay, there we go. All right. Share. No. Stop. All right. All right, back to it here. So what I love about this video is it's more than just hormones. And that is something that we get taught and told that, it's just hormonal, but there is so much going on. And when we can understand this, so much going on in the brain, we can meet our girls with compassion, right? Like every time I watch this video, I'm a mom, I've got a teenager and a preteen. And when I see this video, it's like, yes, she's remodeling and I can take this and use this. I can take this and use this in my parenting. And so I offer that to you as well. And I know for parents, it's hard when she ditches her interests. Maybe she decides to quit piano or soccer, and maybe those are things that you loved for her. But we need to remember that this is her pruning. This is her life. On the other hand, with this brain science knowledge, you can talk with her about it, the use it or lose it principle, when she's like debating on quitting something. So the challenge lies in this part of development of being both invincible and being right. So I just confused myself there. Okay. So no matter what Daniel Siegel says, she might not buy this if you're wanting her to keep something, something that she does, something that you love. She might not buy it yet, but remember that part of parenting is planting seeds. So this is a seed you can plant with her, sort of this use it or lose it principle. And maybe she'll quit for a time, but return to it a year later. I know when I was younger, I quit playing violin. I quit for many years, and I play a little bit now as an adult, and it's super fun. Another thing to remember, that front part of the brain, also known as that prefrontal cortex that's right up here, it's one of the last brain regions to mature. So this area of the brain is responsible for skills like planning, prioritizing, and controlling impulses. In teens, these skills are still developing, and why they are more likely to engage in risky behaviors without considering the potential results of their decisions, and why it is listed in the stage of development. When we are adults, we are fully wired and aren't nearly as risky, right? I mean, many of you are probably ready for bed right now. One more thing I'll add about brain development is that according to Gary L. Wenk, who is a PhD and professor of psychology, neuroscience, this guy's got a lot of stuff, molecular biology, immunology, and medical genetics at Ohio State University, he says the feelings of invincibility that come with all stages of adolescence last until that brain myelinates, which that is that process that Daniel Siegel was talking about, that linking. And that myelination finally occurs at about age 25 for women and about age 30 for men. So this wires, that myelination wires the frontal lobes to be fully engaged, and they work so that we can make good decisions and that we can forecast consequences of our actions a bit better. So let's talk about goals. In the world of psychology, every stage of development is said to have goals. And the goal for teens in transitioning to adulthood, remember that's what adolescence is the goal of identity. Who am I? Where do I belong? This is, again, why you might see a lot of change in appearance, hairstyle, interests. They're trying to figure this out in the world of being a teenager. And hopefully by adulthood, some of those questions get answered. Independence in thoughts and actions. They want to do things without you. This is a stage where they're separating from parents. And for some parents, this can be like, woohoo, we're separating. This was hard. And for other parents, it can be painful because it can come with a lot of things like put downs. Because in later adolescence, they're gonna see that you, mom, dad are human, right? And even in that middle adolescent, maybe even early adolescence, but that middle and late phase, they see you as human. And so they're gonna see that you have faults and failures, and they are going to tell you about them. That can be hard. Separating from parents also can include disobeying rules, spending more time with their friends than parents. And for some parents, that can be hard. The goal is for them to be able to make good decisions for themselves, to cooperate with others, to be socially connected, and to find meaning and purpose in their life, contributing and connecting with the world in ways that give them meaning and purpose. That's kind of repetitive, sorry about that. All right, parent goals is to accept we won't know as much. They're gonna have a life that we do not know as much about. Commonalities change. Maybe you always had this thing that you did together and now you don't. Maybe their interest has changed. She has a family outside of us, a social family. And a goal of ours is to accept that we aren't in charge anymore. So adolescent development is a very trying time for girls' self-esteem. Our hope is that she comes out feeling independent, confident, and capable. And for us as parents, that we can graciously let her fly. But let's be real, the adolescent time is a roller coaster for both parents and teens. And on that roller coaster, girls are taking selfies, scrolling through media in all its form, and spending a vast amount of time evaluating every inch of who she is and comparing herself. Especially just having spent a year in quarantine, where there has been a significant amount of time dedicated to the online space. With in-person school activities, sports, and social life taking a hiatus, the time online for many adolescents increased dramatically. Throw in the fact that spending so much time on certain platforms leads to an algorithm dishing up more and more of similar content. Looking at how to get abs during quarantine, here's a ton of skinny, beautiful girls to show you just how to get it. Looking to get the glow up before life returns back to normal, here's post after post about skincare, hair care, and dieting. So let's look at how social media fosters connection. It builds movements, right? This is, we saw this in the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. Whether or not you agree with any of it, it builds movements. It's a way to stay connected to distant family and friends. It's been a lifesaver in some ways in quarantine. It's a way to connect with role models. Girls report feeling a lot more connected to their friends. That was a research study in 2015. It's a way to receive support, show a different side of yourself. Can foster a sense of belonging, which is important, right? Because in the end stage of adolescence, that's the question. We want to belong. And so this is sort of the trial period of trying to figure that out. Social media can be really fun and funny, and we can do good for others. We can give others support. We can give them likes, right? It can foster connection. The flip side, though, is that social media contributes to feelings of anxiety and depression. Cyberbullying, inauthentic relationships, a brag book, FOMO, fear of missing out, watching other people do things and wanting to do that or being excluded from or not having the means or resources to do it. The number of likes, followers, and snap scores dictates feelings of worthiness and happiness. There's 24/7 access. People can know where you are at all points in time. There's pressure to make well-liked content. There's drama and fighting. There's terms like unfriending, blocking, muting, deleting, and ghosting. Those can be really hard. There's a lot of comparison, a lot of comparison. Scrolling when with others, for example, getting together with friends and everybody's on their phone, nobody's really connecting. You're thinking about other people and connecting with other people. Not being posted about. You might have a friend that posts about all her other friends and not you. Ouch. Developing a negative self-view, and mental health becomes trendy. What I mean by that, there is a trend in culture that, you know, having anxiety or depression can be cool. The flip side of that, one of the great sides, is that a lot of stigma is being broken by this generation, and I love it that they're talking about these things. But the downside is that it can be sort of seen as trendy and cool, and that people might sort of scoop it up, but really not be feeling that way. So please note, when we just looked at this, I didn't say cause depression and anxiety. I said contribute. Because we need to remember that correlation to something doesn't mean causality. Meaning just because research shows that there is an increase in teen reported depression, anxiety, and suicide since the emergence of the smartphone in 2007, it doesn't mean that smartphones are the actual cause. However, there is no denying that there is a link and something we really want to pay attention to. Oof. The research continues to pour out about social media and the correlation between anxiety, depression, and suicide. Caroline Miller wrote an excellent summary of research titled "Does Social Media Cause Depression?" And she looks at the research emerging after the release of the first smartphone in 2011 for the Child Mind Institute. And what she shares is, in a 2017 study, over 500,000 8th through 12th graders found that the number exhibiting high levels of depressive symptoms increased by 33% between 2010 and 2015. So cell phone emerges in 2007, and we're seeing in 2010 and 2015 that depression increased by 33%. The suicide rate for girls in that age group increased by 65%. That is huge. Miller also says from 2010 to 2015, there was a 30% increase in students seeking counseling at college and universities, mainly for depression and anxiety. Again, smartphones were introduced in 2007, and by 2015, fully 92% of teens and young adults owned a smartphone, she found. The rise in depressive symptoms correlates with smartphone adoption during that period, even when matched year by year, and that was reported by San Diego State University psychologist Jean Twenge. The good news, Miller reports, is
media, no.
Tell Papa if he has, tell Papa that Mimi has
all right. The good news, Miller also talks about how those who maintain, and I want you all to take this in because this is important, we're heading here. Those who maintain high levels of social media, but also high levels of real face-to-face interaction are less likely to deal with anxiety and depression. So face-to-face connection really combats anxiety and depression. So when it comes to anxiety, research shows not only interacting on social media correlates with anxiety, but being offline can have a big impact on anxiety too. You know that feeling when you can't find your phone, you realize you've gone somewhere without it? That's anxiety. And then there is the way that many people who are anxious turn to social media as a way to distract themselves. And I see this a lot with my teens. They distract themselves with their phone from anxiety, but this only further contributes to the feeling more. And then there's research that's coming out that talk about people who use alcohol to medicate the anxiety they feel when they're using social media. So they're on social media and they're using alcohol to combat the anxiety. This is not good. So why is this a big deal? You might have your own answers, but let's look at a little more research. So as I mentioned earlier, nearly everyone has access to a device. The 2018 Pew Research Center found 95% of teens now say they have or have access to a smartphone, which represents a 22% increase from the 73% of teens who said they had a device in 2014 and 2015. And this is despite differences in gender, races, ethnicities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Most all teens have access and ownership of a smartphone. The same survey found out nearly out of the 750 13 to 17-year-olds that they surveyed, 45% are online almost constantly. 97% use a social media platform such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat. With quarantine, we can only imagine just how much this rate has increased. I'm looking forward to actually getting the information that talks about the outcome of quarantine. While the research does lend to a correlation of anxiety and depression, and the verdict is still out on causation, in the end, I think what matters most to you is how's your daughter doing? As we've explored so far, we know there are many normal changes that come with adolescent development and goals they are moving towards to meet. However, for some, anxiety and depression can get in the way of their life in a big way. I want you to understand feeling anxious and depressed is much different than experiencing a clinical form of these mental health disorders. We all experience feelings of anxiety and depression. They are normal human emotions and words we use to convey discomfort we're feeling. But there is a line that gets crossed into the clinical realm when it comes to these feelings. So let's talk about those different disorders and how they manifest in our girls. We're going to talk depression first. Let's talk about emotional changes. Feelings of sadness, which can include crying spells for no apparent reason, frustration or feelings of anger, even over small matters, feeling hopeless or empty, irritable or annoyed, loss loss of interest or pleasure in usual activities, loss of interest in or conflict with family and friends, low self-esteem, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, fixation on past failures or exaggerated self-blame or criticism, extreme sensitivity to rejection or failure, and the need for excessive reassurance, trouble thinking, concentrating, making decisions, and remembering things, ongoing sense that life and the future are grim and bleak, and frequent thoughts of death, dying, or suicide. Let's look at behavior changes. Tiredness and loss of energy, insomnia or sleeping too much, changes in appetite, decreased appetite or weight loss or increased cravings for food and weight gain, use of alcohol and drugs, agitation or restlessness, for example, pacing, hand wringing, the inability to sit still, slowed thinking, speaking, or body movements, frequent complaints of unexplained body aches and headaches, which may include frequent visits to the school nurse when they were in school or even the doctor, school isolation or isolation from peers, poor school performance or frequent absences from school, less attention to personal hygiene or appearance, angry outbursts, disruptive or risky behavior, acting out, and self-harm, for example, cutting, burning, or excessive piercing or tattooing. And lastly, making a suicide plan or a suicide attempt. So those are symptoms of depression. And you may say, I've seen those in my girl at some point. And just because we see some of these in our girl does not mean that she is meeting the criteria for clinical depression. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how to get some support if you're concerned. When it comes to clinical depression, or what I like to call big D depression, this is not just the feeling like, oh, I feel depressed, I'm down. This is when we're meeting or we're checking off a lot of those boxes from what I just read. It causes significant distress. It interferes with life. For your teen, it might be school, home, work, relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, family relationships. It feels challenging to control, and it's pervasive. So it's not just feeling down for one day. It's about, when it comes to clinical depression, for a major depressive episode, we're talking about 2 weeks, but the majority of the time. Teen depression signs and symptoms include a change from the teenager's previous attitude, so it's a change, and behavior that causes significant stress, problems at school, home, or other activities and other areas of life. All right, these are some depressive disorders. We've got disruptive mood regulation. There's a lot to them. I'll just give you a little synopsis. And if you're like, wait a minute, that sounds like something, go ahead and check it out or consult with a professional. Disruptive mood disorder is a childhood condition of extreme irritability, anger, and frequent intense temper outbursts. And you might say, that sounds like my teen, but there's a lot more to it. It goes beyond just being a moody child. It involves severe impairment. Okay, and this diagnosis is only given between the ages of 6 and 18. Major depressive order, it's having several of the symptoms I just talked about for 2 or more weeks. Persistent depressive disorder, it's also known as dysthymia. It's long-term depressive state. It may not be as intense as a major depressive episode, but it can last for years, and it's chronic. So it's like you're always kind of feeling depressed for years. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder, extreme mood shifts before your period and the first few days of your period. There's substance medication-induced depressive disorders, for example, things like benzodiazepines, also known as Xanax and Klonopin, alcohol, which is a depressant. Those things can increase depression and can cause a depressive disorder as a result of their use. And then there's medical conditions that are related to a depressive disorder, things like hypothyroid, diabetes, cancer. Other related disorders that can have a depressive component, post-traumatic stress disorder and acute stress disorder. Acute stress disorder These are severe stress symptoms during the first month of a traumatic event. That's acute stress. And then if it's lasting longer than a month, we call that PTSD. Bipolar 1 and 2 causes extreme mood swings that include emotional highs, also known as mania or hypermania, and lows, such as depression. Not such as, lows, depression, yes, is part of bipolar 1 and 2. Psychothymic disorder, it's a rare mood disorder causing emotional ups and downs, but they're not as extreme as those of bipolar 1 and 2. Eating disorders are a serious condition related to persistent eating behaviors that negatively impact your health, your emotions, and your ability to function in important areas of life. The most common eating disorders are anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder. And there's also one that's not in the DSM-5 that's getting a lot of attention called orthorexia, which is an eating disorder related to an obsession with healthy, clean eating. Life adjustment disorders is a stress-related condition. You experience more stress than you normally would be expected. And body dysmorphic disorder, it's a mental health disorder in which you can't stop thinking about one or more perceived defects or flaws in your appearance. And that flaw appears minor or can't be seen by others, but the person sees it. Before puberty, the prevalence of mood disorders is about the same in boys and girls, 3 to 5%, but by mid-adolescence, the girls are more than twice as likely to be diagnosed with a mood disorder as boys, with a prevalence at adult levels about 14 to 20%. I'm not really sure why. I have some hypothesis, but I don't really know the research about why. All I know is that's big. It's big. All right, so let's move into talking about anxiety. Symptoms of anxiety include feeling nervous, restless, or tense, having a sense of impending danger, panic, or doom, increased heart rate, breathing rapidly, you might notice hyperventilation, sweating, trembling, feeling weak or tired, trouble concentrating or thinking about anything other than the present worry, having trouble sleeping, experiencing GI problems, gastrointestinal issues, having difficulty controlling worry, and having the urge to avoid things that trigger anxiety. So clinical anxiety, also known as big A anxiety, right? We all experience some of those symptoms sometimes. Me, before this presentation, right? I was dying inside. I'm doing great now. Thanks for hanging with me. Big A anxiety, it's going to cause significant distress, interfere with life, challenge to control, and leads to avoidance of what it is that we fear, which is why I do these talks. I challenge my anxiety. Here are some anxiety disorders: agoraphobia, avoiding places or situations due to anxiety, like leaving your house, crowds, small or big spaces. Anxiety disorder due to a medical condition, hyperthyroid, asthma, heart disease are examples that can have an anxious symptoms. Generalized anxiety, also known as GAD, it's excessive ongoing worry about a variety of things, natural disasters, bad things happening, always catastrophizing. Panic disorder is reoccurrent and unexpected panic attacks, which are a sudden episode of intense fear that triggers severe physical reactions when there is no real danger or apparent cause. Panic attacks can be very frightening. If you've had one before, you know what I'm talking about. When panic attacks occur, you might think you're losing control, having a heart attack, or even dying. And a lot of people end up in the emergency room and get told you had a panic attack. Selective mutism, a consistent failure of children to speak in certain situations, such as school, even when they can speak in other situations, such as home or with close family members. Separation anxiety disorder is distress about anticipating or being away from home or loved ones. Social anxiety, I see this a ton in teens. This is a lot of what I treat. Significant anxiety, fear, self-conscious, and embarrassment because you fear being scrutinized or judged by others. Specific phobias, fear of elevators, dogs, heights, etc. Fear about a specific thing is what that means. Substance-induced anxiety disorders, caffeine, oftentimes we'll recommend get off caffeine if you're experiencing anxiety. Marijuana, medication for asthma, those are examples of substance-induced anxiety disorders. And then other related disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, a pattern of unwanted thoughts and fears, obsessions that lead to repetitive behaviors, compulsions. These obsessions and compulsions interfere with daily activities and cause significant distress. We already reviewed PTSD and acute stress, body dysmorphic eating disorder. Hoarding disorders have a anxiety component, which is a difficulty discarding or parting with possessions because of a perceived need to save them. Skin picking, hair pulling disorders, and life adjustment disorders, as I already covered. So grief and loss is not listed as a disorder in the DSM-5, which is sort of like the Bible of clinical disorders, but it can lead to anxious and depressive symptoms, of course. So please get your daughter some help from a trained professional if you're concerned about clinical depression and clinical anxiety. One of the beautiful things I love, I'm strange, I love working with depression and anxiety, and they are highly treatable. I've worked with a lot of girls around Zoom anxiety, having their screens on. It's been amazing the work that they can do to really transform and increase their self-esteem. When we can work through hard things, it can be really helpful to us and help us feel good. So here are some people. Yes, there are other people in the world that can help, but these are trained professionals: primary medical doctor, therapist, school psychologist and counselor, and psychiatrist. Okay. Any questions? I just did that first little piece. Anybody have anything? Yeah, okay, well, let's just go for it then. Let me share this beautiful screen one more time. But give me a minute. All right, now we're going to get into the juicy part of our conversation now that you've got all this education. But let me find you for a share screen. Okay. So how do we help girls develop self-esteem in the age of social media? Feel free to give me a drum roll silently. We're getting into it. Okay, so real simple, easy way to think about self-esteem. It's how we feel about ourselves and our own worth. So today we're going to talk about 3 tools to promote connection with your teen girl. We know that self-esteem and connecting go together. Remember that earlier statistic? I was like, hey, remember this. Talking about girls who had real life connection being at much less risk for depression and anxiety related to social media. We want to promote real life connection. The second thing we're going to talk about is resilience, what it is, why it's important, and 5 ways you can help your girls grow and nurture it. We want to support this growth to help them build resilience so that when social media or anything else for that matter throws something out there that brings your girl down, they have the ability to eventually bounce back. So hold on for a second. I'm going to turn on some lights here. I'm fading. All right. So let's get into these 3 tools to promote connection. All right, encouragement. Encouragement encompasses 4 types of connection. We want to encourage girls to stay connected with valuable people in their life. Valuable people. Think, who are your girls' valuable people? Who are they? It might be family, it might be friends, might be neighbors. Okay, we want to encourage her to stay connected to those people. We also want to encourage new connections. We want to encourage her to be connected to herself. And we want to encourage her to live a value-rich life. Our daughters need so much more in life than what TikTok or YouTube has to offer them. And I think you probably know that. We want to discuss with our girls what do they value about their life and explore if they are living in line with their values. If not, how can they? Living a value-rich life connects us to ourselves and potentially to other people. And this past February, March, and April, I've been running a workshop for teen girls called the Best Life Toolkit. And this is my focus that we're working on. How can you live your best life in line with your values, even in the middle of a pandemic? It's been really cool. Because when we make these connections in our lives to ourselves and to others, we feel good, right? When you are connected to other people that you value, when you are connected to yourself, you feel good. So how do we encourage this? We encourage this with some education. We share research. We share some of the things maybe that I've talked about with you today, or the things that we're going to be talking about. We bring it to the dinner table. We bring it in the car ride. We discuss family values, personal values. But I caution you about something. Do not lecture or berate your girl. Promote little nuggets of information and invite discussion. Maybe you're going to have a long discussion while you're sitting on the couch or laying in bed together, but I caution you when you just have the idea and she's not ready to listen, then it's a lecture. And what are you doing then? You're losing connection, and we want to connect. We encourage with our words with evidence. Highlight her strengths, for example, as a good friend and a human being that you have witnessed. What have you actually seen? Don't be like, hey, you're really nice. You're really cool. Like, give her some evidence to back that up. What behaviors have you seen? What do you believe she has to offer? What have you seen her offer? What do you actually see in her? And what have others told her? We want to encourage through our own modeling. The actions we take, talking about our own feelings, making room for hers, even when we disagree. And this can be really hard as a parent. She may be saying things that like just rub our values that we do not agree with. So how can we stay open and make room for the feelings that she has? Because remember, even if she looks like us, she's not us, right? We want to model staying connected to valuable people in our own life. Show her what it's like to stay connected with family, to stay connected with friends. We want to model taking our own risks and forging new connections and doing something new, right? My girls are up at my house and they know that I'm taking this risk. They were like, good luck, Mom, right? And we're going to celebrate when I'm done here. I caution you, though, one thing that I'm going to caution, no, okay, hold on. I'm going to caution you in a minute. Right now, I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to encourage, you want to encourage her to connect with her own emotions. Okay, so remember that third part of encouragement, encouraging connection with herself. And we can do that through journaling, either through modeling, maybe even getting her a journal, self-expression. We want it, like, tell me what you think. I want to hear from you. Mindfulness and meditation. That's one of the great things about social media. That is all over TikTok and Instagram. Living your best life. It's wonderful. This is one of the great aspects that it has to offer us. Getting connected through herself through nature and getting off screens. All right, ready for the caution? I'm going to caution you around connecting with her through relentless texting. We want to teach our girls that connection and love doesn't mean being incessantly connected with someone, okay? Do you want her significant other texting her 24/7? Probably not. You're really like, she needs some space, right? So we want to stay connected with her, but caution about how you're doing that, okay? And what you're modeling for her by your actions. So remember that so much of parenting is about modeling, and we want to show her a healthy version of love. So other practical ways of encouraging, helping her get her driver's license, exploring what she wants to do, give her ideas on things she can do, letting her know what exists in the world. She hasn't been on the planet that long. You have. Give her some ideas, some cool things. Let her know what maybe you've seen on Facebook that she might be able to go to. Encourage her to try something new, a new sport, a new job, a new activity. Second tool to promote connection is providing opportunity. Okay, and providing opportunity means a couple things. We want to provide opportunity for your daughter to connect with you about what she is seeing online. So Henry Jenkins, who's from the USC Annenberg School of Communications and a new media scholar, suggests these 3 types of questions at dinner time. And you might have to refine these for yourself because they may not fit you, but I love these questions. At dinner time, how was school? How did the game go? What did you see online? So think about that for a second. What are the questions that you might have? With the third one being, what did you
You're muted. You've muted yourself accidentally.
Okay. All right. Thank you for telling me that. Did you hear about Henry Jenkins and the 3 questions?
You were in the
Barely.
middle of talking about dinner.
Okay, yes, all right, let me pick back up there. Okay, so Henry Jenkins shares 3 types of questions. Am I unmuted? Yes, okay. It was good, you really meant no. Okay, so 3 types of questions at dinner. The first was, how was school? His second was, how did the game go? And the third was, what did you see online? So I want you to think about how did the game go might not fit for your girl and her life. So what 3 questions would you bring to the dinner table? The third one being, what did you see online? Think about that for yourself. What would you follow up on with your girl? What would you follow up on tonight if you haven't had dinner? Or maybe tomorrow? So I love that third question. What did you see online as a topic about dinner? Jenkins encourages us to think of online life like an extracurricular activity. He says, good parents go to see a band concert, not because they like to hear the Sousa played off key, but because it's important to encourage the arts. And I think, just to tag along to that, it's important to encourage and support our children, right? So we don't go to the band concert, that might be mediocre from the high school. We go because we're supporting our kid, right? And so if they're doing something online, we're going to show up so that we can support our kid and be there and learn and know about it. The second way to provide opportunity to promote connection is by literally being physically connected with people and seeing them in person. So ways that you can provide opportunity to your girl is as simple as give her a ride. Give her permission to have her driver's license and go somewhere. Allow her to stretch her wings and try something new. And parents, I know we get worried about things, especially in the age of COVID. So I realize this may be a little different for everybody. You may consider setting up a space at home that encourages social connection. Okay, and I know that might be a place of privilege. You might say, I don't have a backyard or I don't have a big enough space. But if you do, setting up a space. I know my kids are like, when are we going to get in the pool? It'll foster connection. I'm not getting a pool, but if you have means to be able to set up a space where it can, like, yes, you can be out here 6 feet away in the backyard. Let her know what's available and the reality of her being able to participate. Again, she might not know what's at her fingertips. And with COVID and being in pandemic life, they might not know what's open, what's available. Take family time away from the house. When we are home, we can get immersed into doing laundry and working and dishes and getting on our own devices. When we take time from home, oftentimes we connect. And so I would really encourage providing that opportunity. I'd also encourage a way to promote connection is giving her money to go somewhere and do something. But I'm not talking about spoiling your kid. I'm talking about intentional parenting. Yes, here is $20 to go downtown and have some food with your friends. Okay, I'm not talking about giving her hundreds of dollars and spoiling her left and right. I'm talking about being intentional as a parent. And another way to provide opportunity is to promote adventure. Go adventure, go do things. A third way to provide opportunity is for her to connect to herself. So you might buy her a journal. You might open up that discussion. You might take her to a yoga, a mindfulness, a meditation class, a Tai Chi class. That might be a way just to get out and help her do something that, yes, might be in a group setting, but is about her. Or maybe encourage her to find a YouTuber that she likes and being able to practice some of these things. Again, social media isn't all bad, right? We can use it. The third tool to promote connection is to support your daughter in connecting to a purpose, finding a purpose. There has been a ton of research showing that happiness comes from finding a sense of purpose. Kendall Cotton Bronk, who wrote the book Purpose in Life, a critical component of optimal youth development, says purpose has 4 defining characteristics: dedicated to commitment, personal meaningfulness, goal-directedness, and a vision bigger than oneself. And all this connection to oneself and to others and to the overarching goal leads to the overarching goal of adolescence, which is develop one's own identity. Okay, so this connection to ourselves and other helps us develop our identity. Developmentally, this tool may be more valuable in later stages of adolescence because it's hard for many young teens to see beyond themselves and their self-interest. Remember, they're egocentric, right? So it's not that there's like something wrong with them, that they're like cold human beings. It's a part of their development. Eventually, most will move to a world-centric view, meaning that they're going to develop more empathy and compassion for others and the world around them. And again, development isn't one size fits all. You may have a girl who is very empathetic and not very egocentric. So how to promote teens finding purpose leading to connection? We can help them to capitalize on their interest. What are they interested in? What matters most to them? What are the organizations and opportunities that exist? This is one avenue playing in devices' favor. We can learn all about the world and what exists in it. Social media has instigated passion and purpose for some youth, and that's one of the great parts of it. Other ways to promote finding purpose: volunteering, animal shelters, homeless shelters, food kitchens, elderly homes. I know that a lot of things aren't providing that opportunity, but as things open up, finding out what is. We can find purpose through work, church and spiritual groups, doing things with our friends, volunteering and working with friends, summer camps, travel, helping teens develop other points of view and perspective through conversation can be a way to promote purpose. We can introduce them to social issues and brainstorming what to do about it. We can share about our own purpose and own process of getting there. And even better, we can encourage your teen to invite conversation with others who can share about their purpose. For example, when I was in high school, I discovered that I had a passion and connection for kids with special needs. I TA'd, I was a teacher assistant in a classroom for 2 years, and I befriended many of the kids there. It was such a great experience. Those teachers were my role models, and they helped me discover more about what I wanted to go to college for. I eventually changed to social work from teaching, and I continue to live out my life passion. Going to work isn't a chore for me. It's living out my purpose, and it's extremely fulfilling. And I love talking with teens about that. So those are 3 tools for promoting connection with teen girls. And they aid in them developing self-esteem. All right. A second answer to this question is turning to the idea of resilience. Let's look at what resilience is. And I heard there was an awesome presentation last week about this, so I'll be real short and brief about it. As I said earlier, resilience is the ability to bounce back, to get through the storm and come out intact. It's important because we benefit from learning how to handle what life throws at us and be able to pick ourselves back up. When we are resilient, we feel good about ourselves in getting through something hard. It leads to personal growth. One of my storms came my freshman year of high school. I was given the opportunity to bat for the varsity softball team. I was a freshman. I was feeling confident, cool, and I was batting solid that year. I was ready to step up to the plate. Only my first time up, I struck out. And then I struck out again. To say I was dying inside was no exaggeration. And then I struck out again and again, eventually losing my spot on the team. I remember leaving those games heartbroken, embarrassed, and in tears. It was absolutely crushing. I wanted to quit. However, there was something inside of me that kept me going. I remember I had an experience of having struck out before in my life, and I was able to hit again. While I was never able to bat varsity the rest of the year, I built my confidence back up and persevered through dedication, remembering my past experiences, having fallen and picking myself back up, and due to having teammates and parents that fully supported me. And in the end, my senior year, I made the all-county player lineup. And even though those experiences broke my spirit for a moment in time, it made me stronger. I know it was hard for my parents to watch my self-esteem drop, but I was glad that they were there to support me, and they just sort of let it happen. As much as we don't want our girls to have hard experiences and face storms, sheltering her from it all does not promote resilience and self-esteem. And they need resilience and esteem to get through life. So the first step you can take to help your girl grow and nurture resilience in the age of social media is through allowing life to happen. Stop controlling all the negative coming her way. The tool you can offer her is to help her think critically and then allow her to make her own decisions and mistakes. Certainly when safety comes into play or chronic bullying, we definitely want to step in. And my teen girls group that I mentioned before, they've been working on goals to move towards living their values and best life. I had them evaluate their goal each week, and one week I asked them about getting help for someone because some of them were struggling. And they all of them, they shut this idea down. They did not want help. And while I want these girls to feel like they can ask for help, I also recognize this is an age and stage of development where they need to find their own way. And us adults need to allow for this. Think about it. If your parents intervened at every hard juncture in your life, would that have helped you? You might say yes in some instances. And that's the tricky part, right? Finding the balance of where we fit as parents and providers. Another way to help grow and nurture resilience in the age of social media is by letting her know it's okay to feel her feelings instead of numbing out with devices. I see this a lot in my practice. Girls are numbing out. They may not even realize it. They need to learn how to self-regulate. We need to model self-regulation, how to deal with those big emotions that we all feel. We need to help our girls understand how and why chronic numbing out isn't good for her. Numbing can be dangerous as it leads to losing connection to ourselves and to connection to those that we love. Long-term numbing leads to addiction, and phone addiction is real. As I often talk to my clients, no one ever sets out to become an addict. In order to live our best lives, it's necessary for us to live in touch with our own feelings. So no matter how painful they are, and we need to learn how to address them. Through my work, I have witnessed the relief of girls that I see when they finally open up about the hurt they have felt and they get some support and perspective. Hiding from feelings is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. It's not going to work. I even have adult clients that finally open up, maybe about a junior high experience they've been stuffing for years. They get relief. A third way to help grow and nurture resilience in the age of social media is by taking care of our bodies, getting enough sleep, water, exercise, relaxation, and food. And we need to teach our girls about this. When our basic needs aren't met, it's hard to be resilient. And when they haven't been met chronically, it just gets harder. The Sleep Foundation says teens sleep on average 7.4 hours a night, while the recommendation for teens is 8 to 10 hours. And while that half hour may not seem like a lot, it is, right? You know, that time when you have to get up a half hour early, it can really drag you. It can be really hard. And a lot of teens aren't getting enough sleep because they're spending a lot of time on their phone. We want to model self-good care. We might want to share with our girl, we want to educate our girl around why we want to avoid screens before bed. Remember, nugget, not lecture. We might want to explain that screens increase our levels of cortisol, which is the hormone we create when we feel stressed or excited, and it's not going to help us before we go to bed. That feeling, that cortisol shot often comes through social media. We read something that's upsetting, we get filled with cortisol. We read something really exciting, we can get filled with cortisol. And it also starts producing when we get fatigued. So that's why we can go from that concept of tired to wired, which is something that Anne Comment said, who wrote The Art of Screen Time. As parents and providers, we can share our observations of how they are doing in their self-care with kindness. For example, we don't want to say things like, oh, you look tired. We might say, I noticed you've been sleeping in late, or I noticed your light was on till 1 a.m. I noticed you've been showing up late to class. We might share an observation versus a judgment. Judgments are going to get you shut down. And we might consider collaborating with our daughters around limits and changes. A lot of girls are open to making changes around social media, around their use with their devices. Some aren't. And sometimes you might be asking at the wrong time. So it's a delicate balance being a parent, isn't it? Our fourth way to build resilience, whoop, I lost you. All right, there we go. Is through recognition, tolerance, and appreciation that life is supposed to change, with the exception of parental love. That should never change. We might not like their behavior, but our love should remain constant. So recognition, tolerance, and appreciation that life is supposed to change. Friendships, grades, and relationships will change. These changes can be painful, but if we can acknowledge and tolerate the change, we are better able to bounce back. We can also acknowledge that it's wonderful that many things in our life are temporary. And it's also really hard when things in our life are temporary. And change can challenge us emotionally, right? Some of us don't do well with change, but if we can set the tone with our girls to know that life is supposed to change, they're better off, right? They can be more resilient. Yes, I knew this was coming, or I know that my mom had talked about this to me before, or dad. And the fifth way, building resilience through self-compassion. There is a notion in this generation that being hard on yourself gets results, and being kind to yourself gets you nowhere. I see this a lot with my teen girls. However, researcher Kristen Neff from the University of Texas at Austin shows us we can be kind to ourselves and simultaneously succeed. She's done a ton of research on this. Teens are great at black and white thinking and catastrophizing. I'll never, I'll always, I'm the worst, I'm the only. And that goes against self-compassion. This idea that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy is really valuable to teach our girls. We can model how to reframe our failures with compassion and kindness, which isn't to say that we want to just butter up all our failures and just make them look all roses and sunshine. It's okay to have both. We do fail. That's a reality, right? But how can we fail with compassion for ourselves? Self-compassion gives her permission to bounce back after failures and mistakes, and she's going to need this. The last thing that I want to share with you is coming up in a couple weeks, we're going to be doing a series of talks. 5 essential conversations for parents of girls in the age of social media. And we're going to be covering, when I say we, myself and my colleague Tina Parrish, we're going to have some conversations about safety, diet and body image, sex and sexting, balance, boundaries, and etiquette. So if you're interested in that, you can head to my website to be able to register for that. There is a fee for those talks. However, if you are somebody who's like, Sierra, I want to go and I don't have the funds to come, I want you to send me an email and I will send you an invite to please join us. So don't let finances be an economic barrier to be able to participate. So that's my show. There it is. All right. We've got some time. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. My social anxiety is going to hit the roof if you've got a question, but I'll do it. Expose myself here.
Hi, my name's Lily, and
Hi.
first of all, thank you so much for presenting this to me. I have a question. My daughter's 10, and she likes to be on messaging apps.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a messaging app that you feel is age appropriate for her to be a part of?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you feel okay?
Yeah. Again, I mean, we all have different values when it comes to social media, when it comes to connecting. I am a big advocate for start small, and grow bigger if and as you see fit. So for example, if you are on Facebook yourself, if you have a Facebook account, there's something called Kids Messenger. You can see all of her messages there. You can allow her to use your phone for texting. What I would discourage is just opening up a bunch of accounts. And it sounds like this isn't where you're at, Lily, by any means, but there are times when parents give a lot and then they really struggle to rein it back. I want you to know, if you're in that boat, I give you permission to rein it back. Okay, that a lot of times parents are like, oh my goodness, like, like, well, it just is what it is. She already has it. You can rein it back. Now, if we're talking middle adolescence, if we're talking later adolescence, that's kind of a different conversation. But at 10, absolutely, I think it's okay for her to have some messaging, as long as you're being able to monitor, as long as you know how to use what she's using. I think that would be okay. And just to be really mindful about it and not just sort of giving it to her. One of the things I'll share real quick is I run through my Wise Girl Workshop program. I run groups for girls in 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th, and 7th and 8th. And last week I talked with them about online communication and texting etiquette. And they were awesome in terms of they all really knew about some safety concerns, like don't give your information to strangers. It's like, oh my gosh, they have the stranger danger stuff down. What they didn't have though, and these are really great families that are sending their kids to Wise Girl workshops, who really have their kids' best interest at heart. But it really dawned on me that many families are giving their kids a cell phone and not teaching them anything about it, about the etiquette. And that's why in this upcoming workshop series, I want to talk with you all about etiquette to be able to pass that on to your kid. Any other questions? Thanks for that, Lily.
Thank you for your advice.
Yeah.
Sierra, this is Lisa. There have been a couple of people asking about your slide presentation, and if you would, or if you will be making it available. Is that something that you are wanting to do, or can they get their hands on your slides that you presented tonight?
I think it'll be on the recording.
Okay.
But certainly if you can send me an email, Sierra@sierradater.com, and I'd be happy to pass them along to you if you're interested. I don't really know where I would post them. And I think that there's going to be a recording of this particular presentation that will be available on CIP's website.
That's
At
right.
least we're thinking. Okay.
We'll be posting it on our website, I believe. Okay, thanks. Other questions?
I have a quick question,
I had a
Sierra. This is
Yeah.
this is Tara.
Hi, Tara.
Hi there. Thank you so much for this. This is very valuable. So I really was glad to hear just now that you give us permission to rein back. We have an 11-year-old who has, quite a bit of access and wants independence and wants trust. So what is a good starter phrase to actually engage in that conversation without without eliciting the response, you don't trust me?
Okay, well, so remember, I don't know if you were here, Tara, in the beginning where I talked about parents, we are the mixing bowl and they are the batter, okay? And so this idea that our kids are gonna love when we are the bowl, right? That they're gonna bump up against our boundaries and they might not like it. They might be really upset with us. They might wholeheartedly disagree. And a part of me says, that's okay, right? So what? They can disagree because we have their best interest at heart. And of course you may get, well, everyone else, right? That cognitive distortion, everyone else, hear that all the time, right? Everyone else gets this or has this, why can't I? And so in terms of starting a conversation, I think I would start with what you're seeing and what you're noticing. If you're seeing and noticing things, right? And they don't have to agree with what you see and notice, right? So it might be, I notice like when you get off playing this game, I notice that your attitude is different, or whatever it is that you're observing. You might get, no, that's not me. No, you don't know what you're talking about. And so part of the mixing bowl is figuring out, well, what are the parameters, and talking with, you know, if there's another parent in the picture, like what do we want? What do we value? How much time do we want to give her? And implementing that. Now with older kids, we might, and even maybe with your 11-year-old, but I would caution this a little bit. With older kids, we just want to collaborate a bit more. You know, your 15-year-old, if they've had sort of unlimited and you're like trying to rein it back, like it would be more of a collaborative process. Like, hey, this is what I'm noticing. This is not what I'm comfortable with. What are you thinking? How can we work this? Right. I know a lot of parents get, talk about, you know, that their daughter has their phone in their room all the time. But it's, you know, it's their music, it's their clock, it's their, right. And, you know, a ton of research shows that having your cell phone in your room is not a good thing. So I would say, yes, please start young. Just get that training in 10, 11, you know, whenever they get a phone, starting that young. And then being, you know, if you've got in that boat and you've got a teen, it's about collaborating. Okay, well, I'm going to get you an alarm clock, or you can have your phone in your room till this time to listen to this music, or we'll get a speaker in your room so that you can have that music on and you can turn the speaker off when you're done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You know, I just realized I said my daughter's 11. She's actually 12. I don't know why I said 11.
No worries, we've all been there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
I did. Here,
Yeah.
there's a question from, if I can break in here, there's a question from Adriana asking about how much privacy should be given on social media. Adriana, are you out there?
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a really, really great question, and a really, I mean, a lot of these questions are going to be value-based. Like, it's going to be about what are your values and what, you know, for your family. Again, though, it's start small and increase over time if you can. And if they want it, you know, some kids aren't that interested in social media, right? But a lot of them are. And so, if she's wanting more and you're open to that, to discuss, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? There are lots of people who have a social media contract or a device contract that they write up with their kid. Those are great if you can enforce it. I wouldn't get one if it's going to be a paper that's going to be tossed in the pile and you're not going to enforce. When it comes to parenting, just sort of my overall philosophy is like, make it easy and manageable for you. Like, remember those days when your kids were young and you'd get, anybody here make that chore chart, right? Lots of chores and boxes, and there's going to be stickers and all this, and then you never used it or used it for a week. Same deal here. Like, do what you can manage, and that privacy, you know, if she's wanting a bit more, talk to her about what that is. How comfortable are you with that? Developmental stage, though, let's go back to that. They're aiming for privacy, right? They need privacy and they want privacy. And this is something more that we're going to talk about in those 5 talks as well.
Do you think it is fair or reasonable if I say from that privacy be part of the media social, like I can be informed or like knowing it or reading, or, you know, like where she is into it?
Yeah. So if you are concerned, or maybe in the beginning, yeah. But when it comes to safety, that is a time that I would encourage all of you to be talking with your kids about that. If I am concerned with your safety, I'm going through your phone, I'm heading to your journal. I won't do that if I am not concerned for you. But if I am concerned for your safety in some way, then all access is off, basically. That doesn't make sense. I hope you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
All rules are barred.
All rules are barred, yes, when it comes to safety, right? And parents, it's do not abuse that, right? Don't abuse it, because we might be curious, but if we're curious, that's not the same as being concerned.
Yeah. Thank you.
Noelle, I see your virtual hand there.
Yeah, I have a restless puppy that just got spayed next to me, so I was trying to keep it up. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. Thanks for showing up.
Yes, sorry I got held up on my prior call. I'm glad that the video is good. That was one of my earlier questions. Is the video going to be available? I had a question, not precisely, but somewhere in what you were talking about in terms of promoting. You know, you've met all my girls, and one of them started the year very focused. It was very important. Her, like, she really wants a best friend, and we found it, having not been here very long, having twins, having more than 2 kids, and not long and deep enough ties, very hard to pod. And I don't know how to tell her to get a best friend. I mean, I always just had a best friend. Like, I had one from 1st grade up until 9th grade. And then I had another one from 9th grade into college. And then I had one during college. I mean, I just, you know what I mean? I just always had that. Well, I didn't have a lot of friends, you know, but I had one best friend, and you know, the irony is that she has an identical twin. So she has already made a best friend.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
But she wants, you know, she wants somebody outside of the family that she can, quote, tell her secrets to, and have, and I want to, you know, I've thought about posting, like, how do I help her? How do I assist? I need more information, because I don't know how, and I don't have one, as we've moved so much as adults that I no longer have. I mean, I have my college best friends circling back to me through social media and kind of connecting, but it's not the same, you know, like, I want to support her and do what I can, and I don't know how to help piece that together.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I mean, there has been a lot of loneliness and isolation in pandemic life here. And I also want to throw out, you know, a little bit of what you're saying there. You know, it's like she's got the identical twin, right? But the beginning of, and you know, the beginning of adolescence, and what we're going for is to have an identity, right? And so,
oh no, she's like, I wish I wasn't. It's so funny, because one loves being an identical twin and say, let's be Parent Trap, and the other one for years is like, I want to dye my hair blue. Don't want to be recognized as you. I want to be my own person. I want to, you know, like, I wish I wasn't. And the other one that loves being a twin is like, kind of hurt, you know, like, my chopped liver, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to help them navigate that too. But I want to support her, because it's so deep and meaningful for her. How do I put it out? Did I say, is anybody else's kid looking for social best friend? Like, I don't know how to.
I mean, that's certainly a way. And you know, as things open up in person here a bit more, and depending on your own comfort level, I know that everyone has their own level of COVID consciousness. You know, is she able to join and we can actually take this offline as well too. You know, looking at programs, camps, like what's available that she can begin to meet some people, because the world has just been so closed down here in Sonoma County. And so the opportunities are limited, you know, and as things open up, are there things that you feel comfortable with her being able to do?
Okay, and this may be relevant to other people, since you said we take that offline. She is also one that has, I think, some anxiety issues. And I want to know where you would recommend. I mean, so we're with Kaiser, and I have heard from the previous person that worked inside the pediatric unit that Kaiser generally doesn't give kids enough, because it's kind of scheduled for once a month. And she really encouraged me, if I needed anything for my kids, to look outside of Kaiser, which I'm happy to do, because I don't want it tied to their medical record number necessarily, because we're on an ACA plan. But then we have just had a lot of, you know, economic curveballs. So where do you recommend inside of the county, Marin or Sonoma, that you recommend that's a, you know, like a sliding scale based? I don't know if you do. I know you're great, but you know, if you don't do, where is there, if you could send me, if I could message you and you could tell me places that I could look at, you think are reliable. I don't want to spend my limited time chasing places that aren't as reputable.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide you some referrals, Noelle. And Lisa, is this something that CIP offers?
We do offer therapy for teens, definitely. And it's something I've been posting our contact number in the chat, or you can just look up cipmarin.org and get a hold of our intake. We're offering teletherapy right now over Zoom.
She's going to be 10 at the end of July. She's
Okay.
9.5, and I have 12-year-olds.
You see younger kids, and we see
Okay.
from children to adolescents and teens.
Okay.
Adults. So yeah, you could contact us as well. However, once we're back seeing clients in person, then we're located in Marin. So I don't know where you're located, but you could definitely contact us and talk to intake about that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks, Noelle. Any other questions? We've got a few minutes.
Just go ahead and speak up if you have a question. No more questions out there? All right. Well, I'd like to go ahead and just leave you with a thank you. Thank you so much, Sierra. Such an important and timely presentation. We appreciate you talking with us about adolescent girls and their all the way from their brains to their social media. And thank you all for attending tonight. It was an excellent presentation. I did post a link to the evaluation for tonight's presentation in the chat, and it's also in the email that you used to get onto this particular seminar. So in that same email, you'll find a link to an evaluation for tonight. And I want to let all of you know that we do have one more Raising Healthy Families presentation here in our series. It's in 2 weeks on Tuesday night, March 30th from 6 to 8. It's on preventing adolescent substance and behavior problems using systemic approaches to promote harmony and safety for the whole family with Dr. Kenneth Perlmutter. So any of you out there that are interested in that topic, please do join us in 2 weeks on the 30th. And again, you can take a look at our phone number if you want some information on therapy. And we are conducting telehealth right now, as I mentioned before. And just again, another huge thank you to Sierra. So thank you. And a good night to all of you. Thanks for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for sponsoring these. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra.
Thanks, Christy. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Christy. I saw a couple people from CIP there, an intern and one of our outreach program directors. So, oh, you posted, thanks, Rose. You posted the flyer on the upcoming Raising Healthy Families. You're muted.
End the recording, please.
Okay, I'm going to end the recording.